How's it going, English 218? I hope everybody's doing well out there. We're in the home stretch, and so I just wanted to make a quick video here to talk to you a little bit about your annotated bibliographies and your research process, and to give you some helpful pointers based on what I saw in your first three sources of the annotated bibliography. Before I get into that, a few housekeeping things. If you haven't received a grade on your fact sheet yet, you'll be getting that soon, probably within the next 24 hours, and I appreciate your patience on that. And that should give you a pretty good sense of where you're at headed into the final home stretch of the semester. As I like to remind students, the grade is largely in your hands. If there's something that you would like to revise to improve, I'm willing to help you with that. So if you have aspirations to get an A, but right now you have a C+, let's work together on that and make sure that you get the grade that you want. And we'll do that by making it the grade that you deserve, by revising and rethinking some of the assignments that you've done to make them even more effective. Relative to your annotated bibliographies, folks are, generally speaking, cooking with gas. Things look pretty good. What I love is that the citations are not really an issue for folks. You guys are producing perfect APA citations that include all of the relevant information, the names of the authors, the dates, the title of the article, the title of the journal, and the page number. So that's all perfect. And that's great because that allows us to focus our energy on the parts that are much more important, which are things like identifying the right sources to use and, of course, creating useful annotations. So let's take those two things individually. One of the things that I found myself remarking to several people on their annotated bibliographies was that they were using slightly outdated materials. I'm not one to draw hard lines in the sand and to say this is right, this is wrong, but one of the things we have to be very mindful of in science is that information and knowledge changes pretty rapidly. Something that we thought to be true even 10 years ago could by now be proven to be completely false or at least flawed. So it's usually best to be working with the most up-to-date information possible. So I really want you to hold yourself accountable to that. And the thing that I want you to remember is that you can, whether you're using Google Scholar or the library's databases, you can use the modifiers to change the scale of time that you're looking within. And I would encourage you to start within the last 5 years and only go beyond that if you have to, or if you have a good reason to, which you very well may. If you haven't watched the series of videos about using Google Scholar, using the library databases, and using Google proper more effectively, you are missing out. I realize that it takes about 45 minutes to watch those, but I am convinced that they will save you hours of time and frustration if you watch them. In fact, the next little tip I'm about to give you will probably make very little sense to you if you haven't watched those videos. So one of the things that we know that we can do that's very helpful as researchers, and I like to think of research sometimes as a spider web, and I'm not necessarily referring to the spider web that's actually inhabited or built by a spider, but the type of spider web we get in our windshield. The cool thing is that sometimes it just takes that one source to open up our search and our research effectively, kind of in the same way that it just takes a little nick to really spiderweb and ruin a windshield quickly, which I have firsthand experience with. And so what I mean by that is if you go into Google Scholar or the library databases and you find one source, what you can then do, of course, is go to the Works Cited page of that particular source and look for articles that seem relevant and useful in answering the same question. And that will immediately give you another search query that you can use. So what I like to do when I'm doing research is I'll go in, I'll try to find the best source, the source whose title and abstract lead me to believe that it's probably going to be very, very useful in answering my specific question. I go, I find that, I read that, I internalize it, I come to know it very well, I annotate it, and then what I do is I go to the Works Cited page first, and I look for similar articles. When I find one, I generally take the title of that article, and I plug it in, sometimes with the author's name also. I plug it into Google Scholar, and I see if I can find it. If I can, then I click on the full text, and I again, assess that for usefulness. And I do that with all of the sources that I find in the Works Cited page of the original source. If I can't find it on Google Scholar, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go into our library database. I'll do the same thing. I'll search the title. And if I have to, I'll go into the advanced search options and I'll limit my search to the specific publication that article was in. So if I found an article that was in the New England Journal of Medicine, I might limit my search in the database to the New England Journal of Medicine, and that will give me a higher likelihood of finding it. Now, and that's great. and you can see how you can sort of trace a conversation or see the back and forth about a particular topic. The other thing that you can do, and again, this won't make sense if you haven't watched my previous videos, is that in Google Scholar, if you find an article, not only can you click on the article and look at the works cited, but you can do the tremendously powerful thing of clicking on that Cited By button, which is right under the entry itself. And when you click on that, what that's going to show you are all of the sources or all of the articles that have been published since that original article that have made reference to it. And that's really powerful because that allows us to sort of not only look backwards but look forwards. And what that's going to give you, in some cases it'll give you hundreds of articles. In some cases it'll just give you 5 or 10. But it'll give you a series of articles that are directly related to that topic, or more often than not directly related to that topic. And again, you can see how this sort of spider webs out. And eventually what you can do is trace a very specific conversation, because one of the things we know about science is that people don't study whole diseases usually. They study a specific aspect of a specific disease, and people become very, very hyper-specialized in an area, and they study that specific area. And so we have to trace those very specific conversations and enter into those very specific conversations, because we will quickly become overwhelmed if we try to study a very large phenomenon like a whole disease or a whole topic. So that's the first thing, is that you should use the resources at your disposal to quickly trace that out. And what that's going to allow you to do, it's going to give you a larger body of work to pull from, and then you can be more selective. And so you can certainly pick ones that are more recent or that are more relevant, and you're not just kind of scrounging and taking whatever you find. It gives you an opportunity to be more selective. And ultimately what that's going to lead to is a more targeted and focused body of work that's going to allow you to write a more useful annotated bibliography, which I'll talk about in a second, and ultimately a much more useful literature review. So that's the first thing I found myself saying to people. The other thing that I found myself saying to people is to try to pick out the specific details of the study. So chances are, if you're researching at a very specific level, many of the studies are going to find generally the same thing. So I'll give you an example. One of your classmates is studying the effects of music therapy on Alzheimer's disease, and that's a great topic. So we know that it works. So that in and of itself as a finding is helpful to a degree, unless there's some level of dissensus. But what might be even more interesting, and one of the things that you'll be able to sort of take a look at in your literature review as you compare and contrast, you find themes, are the specific differences in the ways that it helps or doesn't help. So are there limitations to this therapy? Are there specific symptoms that it mitigates? So we want to be looking at that very granular level. To say that it helps is great. That's one of the universal themes maybe of literature, but maybe what you start to find in terms of disagreements or dissensus comes in who it helps. So maybe one study finds that it helps advanced stage Alzheimer's patients, and another study finds that it in fact doesn't help. And so then maybe we can start to pick apart and make sense of that level of disagreement. So, and that only happens if you take a very specific look at the findings. To say that it helps, that gets us somewhere. But to look at the ways that it helps, the degree to which it helps, and the specifics of the article really help us. They allow us to really sort of glean and make sense, heads or tails, of that particular topic. Because in your literature review, you're going to be writing and sharing with us the state of the art. What's the state of the art? What do we know about this specific topic right now based on a panel of studies? So that's something that I really want you to think about, because you're going to be looking at a series of studies that presumably look at very similar things that are likely to draw, generally speaking, very similar conclusions, but there will be these small differences, and those small differences are not insignificant, because then they open up opportunities for future research. Well, why did this one study find that music therapy helped the advanced Alzheimer's patients where this other study didn't? And that opens up a really interesting intellectual space where we can then ask very pointed research questions. So those were really the two things that I was commenting most on. Most of the basic things were there. You guys had great citations. Your annotations or your summaries were pretty comprehensive. They gave me a good sense of what they were studying, how they studied it, what they found, what it means. And so that's really good, but don't disregard those kind of small details, because those can be really instructive and generative as we start to look at the whole body of literature itself. And then the other thing is try to work with the most up-to-date information that you possibly can and put those information literacy skills to work. Go into those databases and don't just pick the first thing because it's the first thing. Try to find the best thing. And I can promise you that if you find one really good article that relates directly to your topic, there's a good chance that you will find many other people who have cited it in their own work, and you will find the people who came before that article, the authors and the scientists that came before. So in that way we can really trace it, and you need to focus on that because that's a fundamental skill in immersing yourself in a particular topic. So if you do that, you should be in good shape. I'll be posting the formal assignment sheet for the literature review soon, and then you can use that to guide yourself. As you've probably noticed, I've given you a relatively light workload this week, so do what you can, get caught up, take a break, spend time with family, enjoy yourself, and prepare yourself for the final home stretch of the semester. As always, I welcome you to come see me, work with me, call me, text me, email me, whatever it takes. I want to help you do the best that you can in this class, but from what it looks like, many of you are right on the money. So take good care, and I'll talk to you soon.